The oceans are vast, unknowable realms, stretching across the world and hiding their ancient secrets beneath layers of water, sand, and time. These dark depths are home to legends of cities swallowed whole by the relentless tides, places that were once teeming with life, but are now nothing more than forgotten memories lost to the ages. From the towering ruins of sunken cities to the cursed relics carried by the sea, these tales are as chilling as they are fascinating. Some are born from the whispers of ancient civilizations. Others are the result of human pride and recklessness, tempting fate and nature's wrath. The cities lost beneath the waves often carry with them not just the memories of their splendor, but also the spirits of their past, angry, betrayed, or vengeful souls left to wander the deep. What is it that calls to those who venture near these sunken ruins? Is it the promise of lost treasure, or is it something darker, a force tied to the very ocean itself, forever watching, waiting for the curious to come too close? In the following stories, we delve into three of the most chilling tales of cities lost to the sea, each carrying with it a horror and mystery that has haunted those who sought to uncover their truths. From the once great city of Dwarka, swallowed by the tides of arrogance and divine punishment, to the eerie wise, where forbidden magic summoned an unstoppable doom, and finally to the cursed Dunwich, a city so steeped in tragedy and madness that even the ocean could not claim its haunting memory without consequence. Join us as we explore the submerged ruins of these once great cities and uncover the dark forces that still lurk beneath the waves. These are not just tales of long-lost civilizations, they are warnings. Warnings that the sea never forgets, and it never lets go. What lies beneath may be lost to history, but its power is anything but forgotten. The drowned city of Thonis-Heracleion. It began with whispers of a city long forgotten, a legend buried beneath the sands of time and submerged in the depths of the Mediterranean. For centuries, historians dismissed Heracleion, or Thonis, as mere myth, a tale woven by ancient mariners who spoke of a city swallowed by the sea in a single calamitous night. But myths, as they often do, carry fragments of truth, and Heracleion was no exception. The search began in the late 1990s. Frank Gaudio, a renowned underwater archaeologist, wasn't looking for Heracleion specifically. He was hunting for ancient shipwrecks off the Egyptian coast when his sonar equipment picked up something extraordinary. Beneath layers of sand and silt scattered across the seabed were shapes that could only be man-made: stone blocks, columns, even statues. As the team dove deeper, both literally and metaphorically, they uncovered what could only be described as the remnants of a lost world. Massive temple ruins, colossal statues of gods and pharaohs, gold coins, and intricate jewelry lay buried in the murky depths. But what struck them most were the perfectly preserved stelae, inscribed slabs of stone that confirmed what had seemed impossible. This was Heracleion, the city of myth. The discovery made headlines, but the public never heard the whole story, because beneath the excitement of the find was something darker, something the archaeologists didn't talk about. The divers were the first to notice it. Strange things began happening as soon as they entered the sunken city. Equipment malfunctioned for no apparent reason. Radios crackled with static, lights flickered, and compasses spun wildly, refusing to point north. One diver swore he felt something brush against his leg in the water, but when he turned, there was nothing there. At first, they dismissed it as nerves or the natural dangers of deep-sea exploration. But then came the voices. Several divers reported hearing faint whispers as they worked. The sounds were muffled, indistinct, but unmistakably human. It was as though someone or something was speaking to them just out of earshot. One diver, a veteran with years of experience, surfaced in a panic, claiming he'd heard a woman's voice calling his name from inside one of the temple ruins. He refused to dive again. The artifacts themselves added to the unease. Many of them were adorned with strange, unrecognizable symbols that didn't match any known Egyptian script. Gaudio and his team consulted linguists and historians, but no one could decipher them. The symbols seemed ancient, older than the city itself, older than recorded history. One night, as the crew reviewed their findings on the research vessel, a sudden storm swept in. The Mediterranean, calm just hours before, turned violent. Waves crashed against the ship, and the wind howled like a living thing. The storm was so severe that it forced the crew to halt their work for several days. When they returned to the site, they found something unsettling. The silt and sand that had covered the city for centuries had shifted, revealing new structures, buildings and statues they hadn't seen before. It was as though the storm had unearthed more of the city, but the layout didn't make sense. The newly uncovered ruins seemed wrong. The buildings were twisted, their angles unnatural, almost as if they had been warped by some immense force. And the statues, once proud representations of gods and rulers, now appeared grotesque, their faces distorted into expressions of anguish. The divers pressed on, though their unease grew with every descent. They began to experience vivid dreams, visions of a great city teeming with life, its streets bustling with priests, merchants, and sailors. But the dreams always ended the same way, the city engulfed by water, its people screaming as they were swallowed by the sea. One diver, a young woman named Sophia, became obsessed with one particular artifact, a small, intricately carved tablet found near the temple ruins. She claimed it was calling to her, though she couldn't explain what she meant. She began spending hours staring at it, tracing the strange symbols with her fingers. Then, one night, Sophia vanished. The crew searched the ship, the water, everywhere, but she was gone. Her dive gear remained untouched, and no one had seen her enter the water. The only clue was the tablet, which was found lying on her bunk, its symbols glowing faintly in the dark. After Sophia's disappearance, the team began to unravel. More divers reported hearing voices, seeing shapes moving in the water just beyond the range of their lights. One man swore he saw a figure standing on the seabed, staring at him from the entrance of the temple. Then came the final dive. Frank Gaudio himself led the expedition, determined to uncover the source of the mystery. As the team descended into the heart of the city, the water grew colder, the light dimmer. The temple loomed ahead, its entrance gaping like a mouth. Inside, the walls were covered in those strange symbols, pulsing faintly in the dark. They found Sophia there, or what was left of her. She was floating in the temple's central chamber, her eyes wide open, her face frozen in an expression of terror. In her hand was the tablet, its symbols glowing brighter than ever. The divers fled, abandoning the site. The artifacts were packed up and sent to museums, but many of them were quietly removed from public display after reports of strange occurrences, shadows moving on their own, whispers in empty rooms, a sense of being watched. Today, Heracleion is celebrated as one of the greatest archaeological discoveries of our time. But the divers who were there will tell you a different story. They'll tell you about the whispers, the shadows, and the feeling that the city wasn't just lost. It was buried, hidden for a reason. And sometimes, when the waters of the Mediterranean are calm, fishermen claim they can see the outline of the city beneath the waves. They say it glows faintly, as though it's still alive, waiting for the day when it will rise again. The cursed depths of Pavlopetri. The waters off the coast of southern Greece are calm, crystal clear, and deceptively tranquil. Beneath their serene surface lies the ancient city of Pavlopetri, a settlement so old that it predates even some of the earliest known Greek civilizations. Pavlopetri is no legend. It is real, discovered in 1967 by an oceanographer and later confirmed by archaeologists. But what the reports don't tell you is the story of what happened to those who first explored its sunken streets. The discovery was hailed as monumental. Here was a city submerged for over 5,000 years, its buildings, courtyards, and roads preserved as though the sea had frozen time. Archaeologists and divers flocked to the site, eager to study its mysteries. But with every dive, unease grew. Something about Pavlopetri felt wrong. It started with the silence. Unlike other underwater sites where the ocean thrums with life, schools of fish darting through ruins, the distant hum of boats overhead, Pavlopetri was eerily still. Divers described it as stepping into another world, one where time had stopped and sound itself had died. No fish swam among the ruins, no coral clung to the ancient walls. It was as though the sea avoided this place. The divers began their work, mapping the city's layout. The streets were narrow, winding between stone houses that still stood despite millennia beneath the waves. They found pottery, tools, and even signs of a thriving textile industry, evidence of a once prosperous civilization. But the deeper they went, the more peculiar their findings became. In the center of the city, they discovered a structure unlike anything else in Pavlopetri. It was circular, its walls carved with strange symbols that no one could decipher. Inside the structure was a large stone basin, blackened as though by fire. Around it were scattered fragments of bone, not animal, but human. The divers reported an overwhelming feeling of unease inside the structure, a sense that they were being watched. One diver, a young man named Theo, swore he heard whispers as he swam through the doorway. "It was like they were calling me," he said later, his voice trembling. "But it wasn't Greek. It wasn't any language I've ever heard." Theo's behavior changed after that dive. He became withdrawn, refusing to enter the water again. At night, the crew would find him sitting on the deck of the boat, staring out at the water. "They're still down there," he would mumble over and over. "They never left." Then came the incident. On the fourth day of the expedition, one of the divers, Sophia, failed to resurface. The team immediately launched a search, scouring the area around the ruins. Her oxygen tank and gear were found near the circular structure, but there was no sign of her. The team reviewed footage from her helmet camera, hoping for answers. The video started normally, showing Sophia swimming through the streets, her light illuminating the ancient stones. But as she approached the circular structure, the camera began to glitch. The footage flickered, the audio cutting in and out. There were brief moments of clarity, a flash of her entering the structure, her light reflecting off the blackened basin. And then came the sound. It wasn't static, but a low, guttural noise that grew louder as the footage progressed. The screen went dark, and the last thing the team heard was Sophia screaming. Her body was never recovered. The expedition was called off after that, but the whispers about Pavlopetri didn't end. Local fishermen refused to go near the site, claiming the waters were cursed. Some spoke of seeing strange lights beneath the waves at night, glowing faintly like a fire burning underwater. Others told of hearing voices when the wind was still, soft, melodic, and inhuman. In the years that followed, other expeditions attempted to study Pavlopetri. They brought advanced equipment, hoping to unlock its secrets. But strange occurrences continued to plague the site. Cameras malfunctioned, data was lost, and several divers reported hallucinations. One man claimed he saw figures walking the streets of the sunken city, their eyes glowing in the darkness. The circular structure remained the greatest mystery. No one could determine its purpose, though some theorized it was a temple or altar. The symbols carved into its walls defied translation, their meaning lost to time. But one archaeologist, a linguist specializing in ancient scripts, suggested they weren't meant to be read. "They're warnings," she said, her voice shaking. "They're telling us to stay away." Pavlopetri remains one of the world's most fascinating underwater discoveries, a snapshot of a lost civilization frozen beneath the sea. But for those who have been there, it is more than a historical site. It is a place of shadows and whispers, a city that didn't merely sink but was buried, hidden by the sea for reasons we may never fully understand. And sometimes, when the water is calm and the sun hits the seabed just right, you can still see the streets of Pavlopetri from above. But those who know the city's story will tell you, don't linger, don't dive, because the city is waiting, and it remembers. The Abyssal Secret of Dwarka, a city lost to time. The sea has always been a place of mystery and fear. For millennia, it has concealed secrets that men dared not confront, swathing them in the shroud of its vast, cold depths. Among the countless tales of submerged cities, none are as chilling as that of Dwarka. Lost beneath the waves off the coast of India, Dwarka was once a thriving city, spoken of in ancient texts and revered by those who believed in the divine. But as history unfolded, it was forgotten, buried by both time and an overwhelming silence. It was said that Dwarka was a jewel of the ancient world, a city of golden palaces and unearthly beauty, a city ruled by none other than Lord Krishna. Its foundations were laid by the god himself, according to Hindu mythology, and it stood proudly on the shores of the Arabian Sea, with its massive walls and intricate architecture. But what happened to it? How did such a mighty city fall from grace? And why does the sea remain silent about its destruction? The mystery began centuries ago with the first whispers of Dwarka's existence reaching the ears of scholars and explorers. But for ages, its ruins remained elusive, as though the very ocean was conspiring to hide it. Then, in 1988, a group of marine archaeologists discovered strange formations off the coast of Gujarat, India. What they found beneath the waves was nothing short of extraordinary: large stone structures, what seemed to be remnants of a once thriving civilization. The find was a groundbreaking moment in archaeology, but as they explored further, something unsettling began to unfold. The deeper they dived, the more the ancient city revealed itself. The shapes became clearer: ancient walls, pillars, and even what appeared to be paved streets leading toward what seemed like a massive temple complex. But with each descent into the water, the explorers felt an increasing sense of dread. The pressure of the sea, the endless expanse of dark water surrounding them, began to have a strange effect on the crew. Unexplainable phenomena occurred. Equipment malfunctioned, compasses spun wildly, and some of the divers spoke of hearing strange voices, though there was no one around. It was as if Dwarka itself was calling them, beckoning them toward the ruins, but also warning them to turn back. The locals, many of whom were descendants of ancient Indian tribes, had their own stories about Dwarka. Some said it was cursed, a city built on the arrogance of kings who dared defy the gods. According to legend, Lord Krishna had warned the city's rulers of their inevitable destruction, but they ignored him, arrogantly believing that the gods could not touch them. As punishment, the sea rose up and swallowed the city whole, leaving nothing behind but a haunting reminder of their hubris. As the team of archaeologists continued their work, strange accidents began to plague them. One by one, members of the crew fell ill, plagued by mysterious ailments. Some became inexplicably weak, others grew delirious, speaking of strange visions of the drowned city, its temples still echoing with the cries of its lost inhabitants. Their lives seemed to spiral out of control, as if the sea itself was punishing them for uncovering the ancient city's secrets. But worse yet were the nightmares. The crew's dreams were filled with terrifying visions of the ancient city, as though Dwarka's spirits were trying to make contact. They dreamt of the city's golden palaces, the sacred temples, and the streets teeming with people. But there was something wrong with these dreams, something sinister lurking just beneath the surface. Faces appeared in the water, twisted and deformed, mouths agape in silent screams. The dead seemed to rise from the ocean's depths, clawing their way toward the surface, begging for release. Every morning, the crew awoke in a cold sweat, terrified and exhausted, unsure if they had been dreaming or if something more sinister had occurred while they slept. The city's legacy was far more than just historical. It was supernatural. Those who dared approach Dwarka, whether in their ships or beneath the waves, seemed to be drawn to its dark influence, as if the ocean had not only claimed the city, but also the souls of its inhabitants. The further the archaeologists delved into the ruins, the more they felt the weight of its history pressing down on them. It was as though the city was still alive, its memory preserved in the water, and it didn't want them to leave. But the nightmare escalated when the last of the crew members returned to the surface, claiming they had found something that should never have been uncovered. One diver spoke of an altar deep beneath the ruins, a sacred place that emanated an unnatural energy. On it lay an ancient relic, a golden idol that seemed to hum with a dark power. The moment the idol was touched, everything changed. The sea seemed to stir with anger, the water turning cold and still, as though time itself had come to a halt. The diver was never seen again, vanishing into the abyss as if swallowed by the ocean itself. His disappearance was never fully explained, though many feared that Dwarka had claimed another soul. Since that fateful day, the ocean around Dwarka has become even more treacherous. Divers speak of strange currents, pulling them toward the submerged city with an unnatural force. Fishermen avoid the area, afraid of what lurks in the depths. The city of Dwarka, once a beacon of wealth and power, has become a place of terror, a chilling reminder of what happens when man dares to challenge the gods. To this day, Dwarka remains submerged, hidden beneath the waves, waiting for the next group of curious souls to venture too close, to uncover what should remain forgotten. The ocean guards its secrets, its fury ever present beneath the surface. And those who have dared to uncover the truth of Dwarka have learned, too late, that some cities should remain lost, some histories better left in silence. The sea, it seems, is not simply a place of water and waves. It is a graveyard, a tomb for those who challenge its power. And the lost city of Dwarka? It is a warning, a reminder that the ocean never forgets. It never forgives, and it will never let the dead rest in peace. The cursed ruins of the city of Dunwich, a legacy drowned in fear. It's said that some cities never truly die. They are consumed by time, lost to the sea, but their echoes persist, waiting for the right moment to return. The legend of Dunwich, an ancient city that once stood on the coast of Suffolk, England, is one such tale, an enduring ghost story hidden beneath the waves, forever haunted by the forces that drowned it. Dunwich was once a thriving medieval city, a bustling port with a vibrant population, surrounded by marshlands and perched on the edge of the North Sea. It was one of the most important towns in Anglo-Saxon England, with great wealth from trade and the fishing industry. The city was known for its impressive cathedral and thriving marketplace. The people of Dunwich lived comfortably by the sea, unaware that their prosperity came at a cost, a price that the ocean, as always, would eventually demand. But the sea's appetite for land was growing. Over the centuries, the relentless waves began to eat away at the cliffs and shores, slowly devouring the city. First, it was the beaches, small tides nibbling at the edges of the coastline. Then the erosion became more aggressive. The cliffs crumbled, the sea surged with increasing frequency, and the once proud city began to sink into the sands. the people of Dunwich tried everything they could to hold back the tides. They built protective sea walls, tried reinforcing the crumbling cliffs, but no matter what they did, the ocean proved stronger, more patient. It had begun its inexorable reclamation, and nothing could stop it. The final blow came in 1286. The city had been losing ground for centuries, but in one tragic night, a storm unlike any other struck. The sea raged like an angry beast, and the storm tore through the city with vicious speed. The cathedral, once a symbol of hope and strength, was torn to shreds, its stones washed away by the brutal waves. The streets, once full of life, were silenced as the entire town was swept into the sea. By morning, Dunwich had disappeared. Only a few remnants remained. Bits of the cathedral's spires and the occasional fragment of a building washed ashore, as if mocking the people who had once believed their city was invincible. The memory of Dunwich lived on in the stories of the villagers who had escaped the storm. They spoke of the city's fall in hushed tones, warning others that the ocean had claimed the city and its people, leaving nothing behind but the ghosts of what had been. However, even as the town was swallowed by the sea, the story did not end. Strange things began to happen, things that could not be explained by natural causes. Fishermen reported hearing strange, hollow sounds rising from the depths of the sea, whispers of lost voices, eerie echoes of the city that once was. Some spoke of seeing figures in the water, pale, translucent shapes walking along the shores of Dunwich, their eyes vacant and unblinking, as though they were trapped between the world of the living and the dead. People claimed to hear the bells of the cathedral ringing at night, though the cathedral no longer existed. But there was something darker beneath the surface, something more sinister. Over the centuries, the tide carried more than just the buildings of Dunwich. Some believed the souls of the drowned had never found peace. Others thought the city had been cursed, as if the very earth that Dunwich stood upon was stained with an ancient, unspoken evil. And the stories that followed were enough to chill anyone to their core. By the 18th century, the town of Dunwich had faded into a small, rural community. It seemed that the legacy of the ancient city had been forgotten, until a series of strange occurrences began to stir fear among the new generation. In 1792, a fisherman named Samuel Pike was reported missing after he set sail to the area where Dunwich once stood. His boat was found adrift, and his body was discovered days later, his face frozen in an expression of sheer terror. His fingers were clutching something, a smooth black stone inscribed with strange symbols that no one could understand. Some believed it was a relic from the old city, an artifact that had been lost for centuries. More strange disappearances followed. One by one, fishermen and travelers who ventured near the sunken city began to vanish. Their bodies would wash up on the shore days later, but their faces were always contorted in fear, their mouths gaping in silent screams. The people who remained in Dunwich whispered of an unseen force beneath the waves, something ancient and angry that still sought to claim souls, something tied to the city's fall. In 1912, a group of explorers, eager to uncover the truth behind the lost city, set out on a daring mission. Equipped with underwater cameras and diving gear, they descended into the cold depths off the coast of Dunwich, hoping to document what remained of the city. What they found was enough to haunt anyone for a lifetime. The ruins of the cathedral could still be seen, partially buried in the sand, but it was what they found inside the sunken structure that sent them fleeing in terror. Among the remnants of the walls, they discovered carvings, ancient symbols that had not been seen in centuries. But most disturbing of all was the discovery of an altar at the center of the cathedral. On it lay a black stone, identical to the one Samuel Pike had found, glowing faintly in the darkness. The explorers, overcome with dread, fled the site before they could further investigate. It was said that as they swam back toward their boat, they were pursued by something in the water. shadowy figures that seemed to move beneath the waves, stretching toward them as if to pull them down into the depths. One diver never made it back. His body never recovered. The remaining explorers returned with haunting stories of whispers beneath the sea and a sense of being watched by an unseen presence. The legacy of Dunwich, it seemed, had never been truly buried. The city's fall had not been the end of its story. It had only been the beginning. The sea had claimed not only the buildings and streets of Dunwich, but also its people, their souls trapped in the watery depths, forever bound to the city that had been consumed by the ocean's insatiable hunger. To this day, the area near Dunwich remains shrouded in mystery. The ghostly whispers that rise from the sea continue to unsettle those who dare venture near the lost city. Some say the ocean still holds the ruins, waiting for those who will dare to uncover its dark secrets. But for all who have ventured too close, the outcome has been the same. A glimpse of the cursed past, a brush with the otherworldly terror of Dunwich, and the unmistakable feeling that some cities, once lost, never truly die. They only wait, buried beneath the waves, for the day they will rise again.